Prairie Street. This week in our scriptures in John 20, we read the story of Jesus giving the Holy Spirit to his disciples, and he breathes on them. And this week in the news, we hear George Floyd cry out, "I can't breathe," before he was killed at the hands of police brutality. This is the second sermon in a row that I have preached to you all, where the news of the week has to do with violence against Black folks in our community and in our world. You know, in 1963, here in the room where I am right now, a group of Mennonites put together a civil rights movement meeting. It was a group of mostly white folks, and there were at least 5 Black Mennonites who were at that meeting and addressed the crowd. One of them was Vincent Harding. You might know of Vincent Harding. He worked closely with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. during the civil rights movement. And at that meeting, Vincent Harding called on his sisters and brothers in the Mennonite Church to participate in the civil rights movement, to advocate for the lives of Black sisters and brothers. And so I'm here in this room standing in that legacy right now. The legacy of leaders like Vincent Harding, who called on the church to care for sisters and brothers as they face the violences of this world. You know, at times like this, some of us might wonder, what are we supposed to do? And there's not always an easy answer to that, but I think this week our scriptures in John 20 might give us some answers. Today is Pentecost. This is the day we remember the Holy Spirit breaking into the world, empowering Christians in the church and mission, and participating in the reign of God here on earth. And often on the day of Pentecost, we read in Acts 2, this beautiful image of the Holy Spirit moving among the earliest Christians, empowering them to speak languages from their sisters and brothers around the world. And it's this multicultural, intercultural picture of the church. Maybe similar to what we have envisioned here at Prairie Street to be an intercultural church. But I want to read in the Gospel of John about John's telling of this story, about what John has to say about the Holy Spirit coming to us. The Holy Spirit, the breath of God moving in the world. The story that we heard this morning from John 20 shows us a picture of Jesus' disciples shortly after Jesus was killed by the state, the Roman Empire, on a cross. They're gathered together and they are fearful. They have the door locked. They don't know what would happen. They might themselves be afraid of the violence lingering around outside of them. And in this context, as they are thinking of their leader, God on earth, the one who called on them to believe that Jesus was God walking among them, the one that they just saw murdered on a cross. In that room filled with fear, Jesus appears to them and says, "Peace be with you." You know, the whole Gospel of John kind of leads up to this moment. In chapter 1, verse 33, the Gospel writer writes that the one on whom you see the Spirit coming down and resting is the one who baptizes with the Holy Spirit. I have seen and testified that this one is God's Son. So from the beginning of John telling the story of Jesus, he tells us that Jesus will bring us a baptism of the Holy Spirit, that Jesus will give us the Holy Spirit. And so here in John 20, our text for today, Jesus comes and offers the Holy Spirit. Kind of from the beginning of the book to the end, we see this promise fulfilled. And it's interesting that as Jesus appears to the disciples, he says, "Peace be with you." You know, this is another kind of common theme throughout the way John tells the story of the Holy Spirit. And in John 14, John writes that Jesus tells his disciples, and this is my CEB translation of the book of John. Jesus says, "I will ask the Father, and he will send another companion who will be with you forever." Some translations say advocates. Jesus is saying that he will ask God to send the Holy Spirit to be with us when Jesus is gone. And then shortly after that, in verse 27, Jesus says, "Peace I leave with you. My peace I give you. I give to you not as the world gives. Don't be troubled or afraid." I wonder if the disciples remembered Jesus saying that in their fear when Jesus arrived and said, "Peace be with you." I wonder if they remembered that Jesus had told them that the peace that Jesus gives us is not the kind of peace that the world gives us. You know, as they were living in the Roman Empire, they probably heard the word peace frequently, this Pax Romana, this peace of the empire. It was the kind of peace where if you just stayed quiet and you followed the rules of the empire, everything would go okay. But if you questioned the justice that you were seeing in the world, they would pacify you. They would make you quiet. But Jesus says that the peace that he offers is not that kind of peace. It's a different kind of peace, and it comes with the Holy Spirit. So in our reading today, it says that Jesus breathed on them and said, "Receive the Holy Spirit," right after he says, "Peace be with you." So this idea of peace and the Holy Spirit go together. And it's not just about feeling peaceful on the inside. This isn't the kind of peace that we go and retreat to when we see injustices like George Floyd being pushed against the concrete with the knee of a police officer. It's not the kind of peace we escape to. Our scriptures today say that Jesus says, "Peace be with you. As the Father sent me, so I am sending you." It's the kind of peace that moves us to action, to work for peace, to engage in peacemaking. And Jesus gives us the Holy Spirit to engage in that work. Today in our world, we hear the words that come out of violence, the words, "I can't breathe." A cry against the violence that we face. And today, on this day, we remember. We remember in the world we live in right now, where we hear folks saying, "I can't breathe." We remember this story where Jesus enters into our fear and says, "Peace be with you." And breathed on his disciples. So sisters and brothers, right now I want to invite you. As Jesus breathed on his disciples, Jesus breathes on you. I invite you to breathe in the Holy Spirit. Take it in. Jesus breathes on you in your white skin. Jesus breathes on you in your black skin. Jesus breathes on you in your brown skin and gives you the Holy Spirit. Jesus made you as you are, just as you were meant to be. In the beginning of John, it says the Word was with God. In the beginning, Jesus was there when you and I were created in the beginning. And as the Spirit breathes on you, we remember that God put us where we are in a particular position to be sent. God didn't make a mistake making you where you are and making you who you are right now. But God does give you the Holy Spirit to send you into the mission of receiving God's peace and participating in peacemaking. And so as you breathe in the Holy Spirit, I wonder what comes out as you breathe out. As you breathe out, do you speak in tongues of angels? As you breathe out, do you cry for justice? As you breathe out, do you offer a word of consolation to a neighbor? As you breathe out, do you close your eyes and release a lamenting cry? Or as you breathe out, do you experience the Holy Spirit sustaining you as your breath goes in and out? Even as we hear the tragic news of the day. I read an article in the Sojourners magazine written by Courtney Ariel where she calls on white Christians to act for racial justice. And a particular quote in this call I think stands out to me. She writes, "There may not always be a practical, tangible way to pursue this work, but I believe you will know it when you meet it face to face." This is the gift of the Holy Spirit, sisters and brothers. The gift of the Holy Spirit moving into our lungs, breathing in the peace of God so that we can participate in God's mission in this world, is that God is with us even as we see the news, even in our confusion of not knowing what to do, and when God opens an opportunity. As we listen to the Holy Spirit will let us know what to do when it's time to act. Will let us know when it's time to lament. Will let us know when it's time to cry out for justice. So sisters and brothers, as you go throughout your week, I encourage you to breathe in the Holy Spirit. Breathe in the Holy Spirit as you witness what is going on in the world, and be ready in case the Spirit asks you to move into mission. Amen.